Second half adjustments not only helped the Sun Devils get past Texas State, but it got them better grades from Locked On Sun Devils.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrats36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. If you have not hit subscribe on YouTube yet, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are 11 subscribers away from getting to 1,000. We'll find a way to celebrate together. Unfortunately, I cannot jump into Tempe Town Lake. It is illegal, and you guys are trying to get me in trouble as much as I appreciate it, but we will find a way to celebrate together as a channel when we get to that milestone. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB for 20% off of your order. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in to this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. Today, we're grading ASU against Texas State. As we have done for the previous two grade podcasts, for the wins over Wyoming and the wins over Mississippi State, we are going to go through offense, defense, and coaching. Offense is going to be position by position breakdown. Defense will be all three levels, and coaching will be Dillingham as well as the two coordinators. We're also going to be doing a scale of 0 to 100 and then averaging out the grade at the very end of it for how the team did overall. Let's start with quarterback. Quarterback, Sam Leavitt. I'm giving him a B+. I'm giving him an 87 out of 100 here. Now, the thing that really impressed me about this game from Sam Leavitt was they pushed the ball down the field. Coming off of the close win over Mississippi State, there was a lot of questions about whether or not Sam Leavitt was going to be a quarterback that could, efficiently run a passing game, which may be a bit of an overreaction after two games. But third game, he looked a lot closer to where he was in week one against Wyoming, where he threw 250-some yards and 2 touchdowns, than he did 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago against Wyoming, 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State. Final answer, where he threw less than 100 yards and no touchdowns. He goes into this game, he completes right about 65% of his passes. He's 19 of 30, 246 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 bad interception. He did manage to also scramble for 40 yards and another score on the ground. But I love that they were pushing the ball down the field, and he started to establish that connection that I've been waiting to see with Jordyn Tyson, who we'll talk more in detail about in just a minute. But I really liked seeing the offense open up a little bit with Sam Leavitt and the arm talent that he has. He was able to get the ball down the field. There's still some work to be done with the placement. It's not crystal clean. It's still a lot of touch passing that's got to be worked on. We saw that very evident on his interception where he overthrew Marqueston Douglas. And if Douglas doesn't get his hand up to kind of deflect that ball, I think it was the safety would have picked it off cleanly and would have been able to take it back for quite a few yards. Instead, the safety has to make a good play on the ball, but because it's college, he's down immediately because he's down on the field. So not the best throw, but overall, I think the body of work was very, very good for Sam Leavitt, and we're seeing him begin to get comfortable with Jordyn Tyson. He targeted him more than any other receiver over the first 3 games of the year. It's not a coincidence that eventually things are going to start clicking. That's what they did in this game. Sam Leavitt, B+ for me. Running backs, mainly Cameron Skattebo. I'm also going a B+ here, but I'm a lot closer to an A. I'm going to go with an 88 here. The thing is, this was not an efficient game from the running backs. Cameron Skattebo was basically the only guy who got the ball. He had 24 carries. Raleek Brown had 2 carries. I know DeCarlos Brooks was out. I'm not sure if Tyson was out, but he obviously was not on the field very much, if at all. I feel like he didn't play, but I don't remember for sure, and I didn't think to put that in my notes. Skattebo got the ball 24 of the 26 carries that went to running backs. He turned it into he turned it into 62 yards, 200 less than he had previously against Mississippi State. He did score 2 touchdowns. His long was only 30, or oh my goodness, I can't talk today. His long was only 13 yards. So just not a very efficient day. Some of that is to blame on the offensive line as well, and we'll talk about them, as well as the Texas State defense that completely sold out on the run and told ASU, if you're going to beat us, you have to pass the football. So I don't put a ton of blame on the running backs here, but at the end of the day, it wasn't an explosive attack. It wasn't an efficient attack. It was 2.4 yards per carry from the ground game. Now, the thing that matters at the end of the day was Skattebo got the clutch 3rd down conversion to put the game away, which is what he did 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State. And then he also got the 2 most critical touchdowns of the game. The first that was able to get you on the board, and then one in the second half that was able to tie the game at 28. Sounds like he did everything he needed to do. 88 out of 100 B+ here for the running backs / Cameron Skattebo. Wide receivers, I'm going to B-. I'm going an 81 out of 100. The reason I'm not willing to go higher is similar to what Skattebo was to the running backs, is what Jordyn Tyson was to the receivers. Tyson caught 6 passes for 120 yards and a 52-yard touchdown. So of Leavitt's 246 passing yards, he caught almost 50% of those yards. He also caught about a third of the passes that went to receivers, or that were completed in general. The rest of the receivers, Melcon Stovall, two catches, 15 yards. Xavier Guillory, 1 catch, 14 yards. And then Jake Smith had a carry for 14 yards. Other than that, there wasn't a ton to write home about in the wide receivers portion here. But Tyson established himself as wide receiver 1, which is what we have been wanting to see on this podcast. He looks like the deep threat that he has the potential to be. He is really starting to put it together, I think. And if he's able to continue building on this kind of performance going into going into Big 12 play, then ASU is going to have a legitimate threat in the passing game to be able to alleviate some of the stress and the burden on the run game. Tight end, I'm going with a flat 80 here. B- flat 80. Chamon Metayer had a really good day. 5 catches for 57 yards. Marqueston Douglas didn't do too much besides break up a football that should have been a clean interception, but was just a really good play instead. Didn't do too much. Really good day for Metayer, though. I mean, you'll take 5 for 57 every single day of the week and twice on Saturdays and Thursdays as well sometimes. This was an okay day. I thought they were okay blocking. They did their job, I suppose. It wasn't anything flashy. It was just a quality day, which is why I give them an 80 out of 100. Offensive line, I got a C-, and I'm giving them a 73 out of 100. This is a tough game for the offensive line. Sam Leavitt was sacked 3 times in this game. He was under constant duress. They also allowed 8 tackles for loss in this game. They were unable to maintain the point of attack more often than not. They got better in the second half. They were able to figure it out when it mattered, which is similar to what we saw against Mississippi State. But that's the problem, is we now have 2 games of evidence that when defenses are going to start stacking the box against Arizona State, this offensive line is not going to be able to dominate. And that's going to be something that Marcus Arroyo is going to need to adjust to as well, and make sure that the passing attack can help balance things out and keep teams from stacking the box. But the offensive line had a really rough go in this game. There was pressures allowed. We've seen pressures in all 3 games this year, particularly from the tackle spots, which I think need to be played around with a little bit, but neither here nor there. This is a difficult outing for the offensive line. But again, they had a good, strong final drive where they were able to at least help Skattebo kind of figure things out. He had that 13-yard carry off to the right sideline. He did a lot of the work by himself, though. And it's hard to think that a guy who just ran for 262 yards wouldn't be able to have another really good game if he had better protection from the offensive line. But again, you're talking about going up a team that really challenged the offensive line. So trying to give them a little bit of grace here and not bashing them completely. But it wasn't a strong game. We can just call it as it is. 73 out of 100, a C- here for the offensive line. Let's go ahead and flip it over to the defensive side of the football. Grade all 3 levels of the defense coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 5 Hour Energy is one of our partners here today. They help fix tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check off everything on your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for home. When you get your supplies for the project, do not forget to get the most essential supply, which is that 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy is the brand that hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give you alert, energized feeling that you need to get through a busy and hectic day. You always know where to find those 5 Hour Energy shots too. They're right at the cash register of nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB and get 20% off of your order. Wherever you get your shows, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Let's talk defense and talk about second half adjustments. This was a unit that was physically they were getting dominated and run over. What I meant to say was literally and figuratively getting run over in this game. They were getting dominated on both sides of the football, and especially on defense. They gave up a lot of chunk plays in this game. The quarterback for Texas State, Jordyn, goes 29 of 44 for 268 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have a late game interception off of Xavion Alford, or courtesy of Xavion Alford, I suppose. It was a tough day through the air. They had a 44-yard touchdown to Jaden Williams, who also had a second touchdown on the game. Bo Sparks had a 20-yard touchdown. Joe Hobart had a 26-yard reception. They did a lot of really good stuff through the air, and the Sun Devils defense struggled to keep up. And it's a lot of work that needs to be done to be able to play a full 60 minutes, but they adjusted. Let's go ahead and break down group by group by group. Starting with the defensive line, I'm giving them a flat B here. I'm going an 85 out of 100. It was a decent day against the run. It wasn't anything too crazy. 132 yards on 31 carries, 4.3 average. No touchdowns on the ground. They they did a pretty decent job, I would say, especially in the second half. It felt like they were really able to get McLeod off of his rhythm, which forced him into some poor decisions and whatnot. Their starting running back, Ismail Mahdi, 14 carries, 68 yards, over 4 yards a carry. But again, it's nothing super duper crazy. And against a starting running back, you will take that and run, especially considering he's more often than not a pretty good back for them. He ran for 1,300 yards last year. So you will gladly take that. The lone sack for the Sun Devils defense came from the defensive line with Blazin' Long being able to get back there and register the sack. They made some good plays behind the line of scrimmage. Overall, a solid day. Nothing outstanding. Giving them a B here. 85 out of 100. Linebackers, A-, 91 out of 100 here. It was another bonkers day for Keyshawn Elliott. One of my bold predictions for the game was that Keyshawn Elliott was going to lead the team in tackles, in sacks, and TFLs. Well, he did none of those, but he still managed 12 tackles, which was one shy of the team lead of Miles Rouser, who had 13 tackles. He was still able, oh my goodness, he was still able to get a half tackle for a loss, and a big one at that too, that came late in the game. And then, of course, he had the greatest fake injury of all time. As he's sitting there celebrating, he looks over to the sideline. I don't know what someone was telling him. I don't know if someone was going, get down. But bro sees it and he goes, sounds good. My hamstring. And just collapses, time stops. Like, it was hilarious to watch, but a win's a win. Great faking. Keyshawn, you are definitely ready for FIFA when you want to take that next step. But Keyshawn had a great day. Caleb McCullough and Zyrus Fiaseu also had really strong days, as well as they were able to find themselves into the backfield. It was a day where the defense really struggled in the secondary, and they needed the front seven to find a way to step up. And it wasn't a perfect day, but it was still a pretty quality day. So linebackers, I think if you have bad play from the linebackers, you get absolutely crushed in this game. So props to them for stepping up. 91 out of 100, A- there. Very much carried by Keyshawn Elliott, but again, McCullough and Fiaseu had really good games. The secondary, I think I'm going to surprise you guys with this grade here, because I'm actually going to give them an A- and a 93 out of 100. Hear me out. They got crushed in the first half. I mean, they could not do anything. They couldn't get stops on third down. There was blown coverage. There was just a ton of miscues. Like the first two touchdowns for Texas State, I don't know if it was just a really bad zone or if guys straight up did not know what they were doing, because Texas State had two wide open receivers to start the game off. It was ugly, and the secondary was just not looking good. But I'll tell you what, that second half, they were insane. They put the clamps down. After an opening drive where they had another big play for Texas State, after that, it's like Brian Carrington and Brian Ward got in their faces and they said, you guys will be sleeping on the porch with no pillows, no blankets tonight if you continue to keep this up. We're going to take your phone chargers. We're going to take your PlayStation, your Xbox away. Whatever they told them motivated them enough to say, all right, we got to figure this stuff out. And they did, because they put the clamps on. They made big plays. Three of the biggest plays of the game from the defense all came from the secondary. Xavier Alford had an interception when McLeod was loading up to take a shot down the field. The guy, look, if Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball, he's getting it because McLeod's arm was clearly not strong enough to get the ball all the way down the field. And Alford was able to just undercut this thing. And he got an interception, and it was huge, and it was a game changer. Shamari Simmons had a critical forced fumble as well to really start getting the momentum back into the hands of the Sun Devils. as they were able to, did they kick a field goal on that drive? I think they did. I think they kicked the field goal on the drive that Simmons was able to get a forced fumble. By the way, Shamari Simmons continues to be one of the best players for the Sun Devils this year. He was the team MVP last year. He could be team MVP again this year, and it wouldn't shock me. And then, of course, the final stop of the game for defense, not including the BS that they got to run with 1 second on the clock. So stupid. But Keith Abney, phenomenal breakup on 4th down. Would just put his body on the line, was able to get in front of the receiver and make it so he wasn't able to catch the football. Great play. Those 3 plays instantly take what was a B- performance, more than likely, and turned it into an A-. The 3 most important plays on defense were all courtesy of secondary players. You also had Ghost Rouser, who led the team in tackles for the 3rd straight game with 13, ladies and gentlemen, flew all over the field. This is a good secondary, and they made adjustments. When they started playing bad, they figured it out. So again, I don't know what was going on. I don't know what Carrington and Ward and Dillingham were threatening the guys with, but whatever they did, it worked. Because look at the results. Speaking of the coaches, let's go ahead and grade their performances next as we round out this edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, for a lot of good reasons. But we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. I can tell you as a Baltimore Ravens fan, I love having access to Sunday Ticket. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. One last time, wherever you are getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Let's round this bad boy out and grade our coaches, and then our final overall grade based off of the average. Kenny Dillingham, I'm giving him a flat 90 out of 100. I'm giving him an A-. This is a game, and you're going to hear me talk about it for Marcus Arroyo and Brian Ward too. They needed to make some big adjustments to be able to get back into this game and win this game. That's exactly what they did. They were getting pummeled in the first half, but they were able to go blow for blow. It felt like that game going into halftime, you were down 2 or 3 possessions, and yet it was tied 21-21. That's because Dillingham has a pulse on this team and has them constantly thinking that you get knocked down. What's the saying? Get knocked down 9 times, stand up 10, something like that. Yeah, that's what this defense was doing. That's what this offense was doing. They found ways to be able to stay in the game, not get down on themselves, not quit. I talked about this last week in the Mississippi State win. ASU's not doing this in 2023. This is a new, different team that has the motivation, the determination, and all that other good stuff to be able to play a full 60 minutes. That's a testament to Kenny Dillingham. So yeah, it was a rough start to the game, but this team did not quit when the going got tough. They only stepped up and played even better. This is not a game that they win in 2023. It's a completely different mentality that they have now. Plus, also want to shout out Kenny Dillingham. You kicked a field goal to go up 31-28 late in the game. When I was saying, go for it, major props to you, coach. This is why you are coaching the Arizona State Sun Devils and not me, as I sit behind here on my podcast, because that ended up being what gave ASU the comfortable feeling they had to be able to close out the game and not be stressed out on these final couple of drives when Texas State's defense was doing a good job. ASU had a couple extra chances to try and put more points up, and guess what? Texas State's they stood up. So what happens if you go for it on fourth down there when I'm saying you should and you don't get it? Well, you don't have those 3 points. This game might go to overtime. So props to you, coach, for doing the smart thing and taking the points. Don't listen to guys like me who sit here on a podcast and think that they know everything. I like to think I do. That's why you're out there and not me. A- for Kenny Dillingham, 90 out of 100. Marcus Arroyo, B+, going in 88 out of 100 here. The biggest problem was it's really difficult to scheme an offense when you just can't get blocks going. But this is also an adjustment that Arroyo is going to just have to find a way to make. And Coach Saga, the offensive line coach, is going to have to contribute as well. They may have to shuffle up some of the guys. I mentioned earlier, I think the offensive tackles probably need to be experimented with a little bit. You could stand to see an upgrade just from the team in general. Once the offensive line gets figured out, Arroyo is called a really balanced offense this year, especially if what Kenny Dillingham said in the Mississippi State game is true, that Dilly kind of took it out of Arroyo's hands and said, I want to run the ball. I want to run the ball. Arroyo has done a really good job making this a very balanced offense so far through the first 3 games of the season. And in a game where they struggled to run the football, they found a way to embrace Sam Leavitt's strengths, open up the deep ball, and figure it out through the air. That's about as much as you can ask for the guy. They got Leavitt's arm involved, and they leaned on Cameron Skattebo. Even when it wasn't working, he gave the ball to his best player. And at the end of the day, that's what ended up getting them the win, was that 13-yard carry to get ASU the final first down that they needed. Brian Ward, also an A-. I'm going a 92 out of 100. Now, similar to what I said about the secondary, this was a B- performance in the first half at best. But then that second half came around, and it fixed everything. But you still have to factor in the first half. Otherwise, yeah, I probably could give him another 95 or better. But you got to play 60 minutes. And thankfully, ASU's offense was able to go blow for blow. And they were able to answer every time Texas State made a big play. Because if they don't, this game gets out of hand very, very quickly. The good news, again, after that first drive in the second half, where they took a 28-21 lead, from there, this defense just didn't get moved. It was much closer to the defense we saw against Wyoming and against Mississippi State for 45 to 50 minutes of that game against the Bulldogs. They were much closer to that than what we saw in the first half against Texas State. That's going to win you football games, and a lot of them. Brian Ward is one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. Brian Ward is just brilliant. He's brilliant. The second half adjustments are off the chart, and it was an achievement in itself to make those adjustments. But then you talk about the results that he got out of it. Sure, ASU only had 1 sack, but again, they were able to force 2 turnovers. They had a critical fourth down stop. All 3 of those, by the way, were back-to-back-to-back drives towards the end of the game. So seriously, when your back is against the wall, this defense stepped up, and Brian Ward is a huge reason for that. Brian Ward, 92 out of 100 for an A-. Overall grade, based off of the averages, they got an roughly 86 out of 100 here for a B+. A small B+, probably closer to a B, but I got it a B+. The adjustments in this game saved ASU. Without the adjustments, without the ability to answer back the way that they did on offense, you not only lose this game, but you definitively lose this game. Sure, a lot of people are going to look at this game and they're going to go, oh, it was only Texas State. Texas State is a damn good football team. And ASU proved that when the going gets tough, the tough get going, in the classic saying. But more importantly, They know how to win football games this year, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how many times I have said it at this point on the podcast. It's probably one of those, like, you hear it and you go, Richie said it. He said the thing. But it's true. It's very true. This is a team that is much improved from top to bottom, and it's been refreshing. They're off to a 3-0 start, their first one since 2019. They've had 3 wins in each of the last 2 seasons. This is a different Sun Devils football team. This win against Texas State is one of the most impressive, gritty wins that we have seen from this program. The grittiness cannot be understated either. The adjustments, the ability to answer back, the coaching was good. You had guys step up and become stars when they needed to. 86 out of 100 not only is an average from everything we did, it feels like a pretty fair grade. If I were to do it just off the top of my head, I feel like that's right around where I would have been. Between an 85 and an 88, I would say. So 86, I think that's perfect. How do you grade the Sun Devils in this win over Texas State? Am I really, really high on one spot? Am I really, really low on one spot? What do you guys think? What saved the game for us? Let me know in the comments, or you can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, though, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. I appreciate all of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube yet, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are 11 away from 1,000, and then we'll find a way to celebrate together as a channel that doesn't require me to break the law. We will be back again tomorrow as we take a look at the question, can ASU start the year 5-0? We're going to look at the differences between last year's team and this year's team and why that might be a possibility. I'll see you there. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On.